I'm Caitríona Perry in Washington, and this is BBC World News America. The suspect involved in Sunday's apparent assassination attempt on Donald Trump is charged with federal gun crimes. The United Nations' most senior official overseeing aid efforts in Gaza says the catastrophic humanitarian situation can only be fixed with a ceasefire deal. And we look at the status of women's rights in Iran, 2 years on from the death of Mahsa Amini in police custody that spurred mass protests. Hello and welcome to World News America. I'm Caitríona Perry. The suspected gunman in Sunday's apparent assassination attempt of Donald Trump has appeared in court. Ryan Wesley Ruth was charged with 2 federal gun crimes, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and possession of a firearm with an obstructed serial number. The FBI says Mr. Ruth was in the area near Donald Trump's Florida golf course for nearly 12 hours, from between 1:59 a.m. and 1:31 p.m. local time, before the Secret Service spotted him hiding in the bushes with a rifle. Before he could fire any shots, an officer fired several shots in Mr. Ruth's direction, and the suspect fled on foot. Authorities say it was an eyewitness who helped them find and arrest him. Although the investigation continues, the former president has since blamed the Biden-Harris administration for this apparent assassination attempt. Donald Trump told Fox News that Ruth believed the rhetoric of Biden and Harris, and he acted on it. He said, "Their rhetoric is causing me to be shot at when I'm the one who's going to save the country." Since the incident, President Joe Biden has called on Congress to act in providing the Secret Service with more resources, as he says it's clear the agency needs more help. He also reiterated that there was no place for political violence in the U.S.
I've always condemned political violence. I always will in America. In America, we resolve our differences peacefully at the ballot box, not at the end of a gun. America suffered too many times the tragedy of an assassin's bullet. It solves nothing and just tears the country apart. We must do everything we can to prevent it and never give it any oxygen.
Well, joining me now is our correspondent Tom Bateman, who was in court for the suspect's appearance earlier, and he joins us now. Tom, what can you tell us about what happened in that brief court hearing today?
Yeah, it was very short, Caitríona, just 10 minutes or so. We got a bit of a chance when Ryan Ruth was brought into the courtroom to observe him in the few minutes before the judge came in. He was led into the courtroom. He was wearing a dark blue jail jumpsuit. He had chains around his waist and he was handcuffed. And then he was sat next to his defense attorney. Now, for a few minutes there, he was sitting. We couldn't hear what was being said between the two of them, but as they spoke, I could see Mr. Ruth was smiling quite broadly at points in time, also laughing at a couple of moments as well. His mood seemed to change significantly when the judge came in. Things became a lot more serious, and he was asked a series of questions, first to confirm his name and his identity, to which he said, "Yes, Your Honour." After he was sworn in, there was then an exchange between him and the judge, where the judge was trying to ascertain his financial status to determine whether or not he needed public defence. He talked about having zero funds, in his words, other than a couple of trucks in Hawaii, which he said were worth $1,000 each. So we got something of an insight into the life and lifestyle of this man, very limited. And then those charges that you've mentioned were read out to him. No plea was entered because this was simply a first appearance before a magistrate, and really a chance, I think, for the authorities here in Palm Beach to lay charges against him while the FBI and the Department of Justice put together what may be a more serious indictment. He is due back in court on Monday next week.
Now, there are many agencies involved in the investigation here, Tom, and they've been giving a press conference today. What more did we learn about the circumstances, about the suspect, his background, possible motivations?
Well, we've learned a couple of really significant things, I think. You mentioned his background. That also came up in the court case because one of those charges was the illegal ownership of a gun, being a convicted felon. So we got confirmation that he has previous convictions. That reaffirmed in that news conference numerous previous convictions for having stolen goods and also weapons offences as well. I think the other significant confirmation we've had is about what led up to this, what the FBI has described as an apparent assassination attempt. From mobile phone records, they say that this suspect was in the woods on the perimeter of Donald Trump's golf course for nearly 12 hours, from 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday right up to the point about 1:30 in the afternoon when they shot at him, when they saw the barrel of that rifle sticking out from the chain link fence. Now, the other significant thing is whether or not there was an exchange of fire. That had been reported in the early moments of this news breaking. What we now know is clear has happened is that the Secret Service saw the rifle, fired on the suspect, but there were no shots fired by him, neither at the agents nor towards Donald Trump. And they've said in the last few moments that they believe Donald Trump was actually out of sight of the suspect while he was hiding in the woods there.
Okay, Tom Bateman in Florida, thanks for bringing us up to date. Well, this attack is the second threat on Donald Trump's life in a little over 2 months, and questions over the safety of presidential candidates have intensified as a result. Our analysis editor, Roz Atkins, looks at the level of security surrounding Donald Trump when he was on the golf course.
The Trump International Golf Club spreads across 330 acres, and Donald Trump plays there regularly. Located in West Palm Beach in Florida, the course is a 10-minute drive from his home at Mar-a-Lago. The club's perimeter is more than 3 miles long. This is one part of it, right by a public road. There's a chain-link fence. Beyond that, you can easily see the course. And this was the route Donald Trump was taking during his round. He'd reached hole 5. According to police, as the former president played, Secret Service agents walked 1 hole ahead, as is standard. And we're told those agents spotted a rifle sticking out of the fence. BBC verifiers concluded it was somewhere in this area, which was later cordoned off. Police say Donald Trump was between 300 and 500 yards away, within range of the rifle. They also released this image, showing a rifle fitted with a scope, 2 backpacks, and a GoPro camera attached to the fence. These events in Florida happened while Mr. Trump's safety during this election campaign was already under greater scrutiny because of a major security failure in July.
Take a look at what happened.
At a rally in Pennsylvania, a gunman shot at Trump, hitting his ear and killing a bystander. The head of the Secret Service resigned days later. The Secret Service said they had increased the amount of assets protecting Donald Trump. But Mr. Trump isn't president, and that's a factor. The local sheriff says, if he was, we would have had to. The local sheriff says, if he was, we would have had this entire golf course surrounded. But because he's not, the security is limited to the areas that the Secret Service deems possible. This raises questions about what is possible, and if the candidates in this presidential election can be kept safe, especially in locations they're known to visit frequently. And while Americans seek answers, the authorities say the threat level remains high.
The acting director of the Secret Service says that he has spoken to the former president and that he is aware that he has the highest level of protection from the agency.
We constantly evaluate based on threat. And yesterday what we show is that our agents and our protective methodologies, and there's a lot of tactical assets in place, things that have been put in place as a result of what happened 60 days ago, those elements are working, and that demonstrates the redundancies that we have. And so we constantly evaluate. We'll of course, look at this and see what lessons learned from it. But as of right now, we are constantly evaluating that threat. And if we need to ratchet up additionally, we will.
Well, let's talk about all of this now. We're joined by Jason Russell. He's a former Secret Service agent and founder and CEO of Secure Environment Consultants. Jason, thanks for joining us on BBC News. We're told there that it was the Secret Service agent walking 1 hole ahead of the former president spotted this rifle through the bushes and intercepted the individual. Was it an effective plan that he managed to spot that individual, or was it a failure that an individual got that close with the rifle?
This would have been treated as what we call an off-the-record movement, which means it wasn't on the schedule. So the amount of advance work that would have been done would have been a lot less than something that was an official campaign visit. So what they try to do in these situations is limit the impact on the surrounding area and kind of have a moving bubble that travels around the former president. Obviously, the agent spotting the threat and, and neutralizing it, or at least causing the threatener to leave, was effective, but obviously having it happen in the first place is concerning, and Secret Service is certainly going to look at their protocols and re-examine what they need to do going forward.
When you say it was off the record and it wasn't planned, does that mean it was kind of last minute or a couple of hours in advance, or what would be the time frame there?
It's hard to say when he decided, but the difference between this as an off-the-record movement and other off-the-record movements, sometimes they go to an ice cream stand or just do something, as part of a campaign visit. This is a place he typically goes. So even though it was kind of technically off the record, it was very predictable, which is why this attacker was able to kind of lay in wait for 12 hours, and predict that President Trump was going to play golf that day. And he ended up being right and was able to get, within firing range of being able to take a shot at him.
And does that strike you as odd that that person was there for 12 hours?
It's very odd. I think either he was really good at guessing when the, former president was going to play golf. It was a kind of a predictable maneuver for the former president. He plays golf typically at this course. A lot of times he plays on the weekends when he doesn't have a campaign event. So being able to kind of guess that he might play golf on that day certainly is possible. That seems like what happened. And, unfortunately, he was able to get into those bushes and stay there for a long time without being noticed by anybody.
Is it possible to fully secure a large open space like a golf course?
It's extremely difficult because obviously you're trying to limit the impact on, nearby roadways. You don't want to close traffic everywhere because that causes issues. So you're trying to limit the impact while also still trying to secure this person. And it's difficult to secure an outdoor venue. It's really difficult to secure an outdoor venue where the person you're protecting is moving, because obviously every move creates additional risks and different sight lines and things like that. So it becomes a really difficult thing to create a secure area when the person is moving in an outdoor area.
The acting director of the Secret Service has said that Donald Trump's level of security is at the highest level. So given that we have seen this apparent attempt at his life again, is there anywhere further that protection can go? Is there anything else that could be done?
I think what you're going to see is maybe more leveraging of technology, whether it's drones, cameras, certainly maybe increasing the perimeter to what we typically would be maybe outside of the perimeter is now probably going to be encompassed. So what that's going to do is it's going to inconvenience, traffic and things like that. But in order to make sure that the candidates are secure, they're going to have to really increase the amount of area that they're protecting.
Given that we have seen these two incidents and there is quite a tension when it comes to this political race, it's so close, as we know, do you expect that we might see more violent acts like this, more political violence?
Yeah, I think it's possible. These events tend to attract copycats. So I think it's entirely possible that we could see somebody else make an attempt or try to get into a venue. I think it's very difficult to do, even in this situation, even though obviously it was a close call. The Secret Service did identify the threat and was able to neutralize it, or at least eliminate it from being a threat. So the methodology ultimately worked, but certainly too close for comfort.
Now, we have seen the Biden administration contact Congress today to have extra funds released to the Secret Service, and we've heard about this issue for months now. Just how under-resourced do you think it is?
Yeah, I don't think it's a funding issue, quite frankly. I think it's a personnel issue. I think being able to hire agents, get them trained, get them out where they need to be has been difficult for not only the Secret Service, but other law enforcement agencies around the U.S. and around the world. So, the Secret Service isn't immune to those struggles. So I think it's not necessarily money, it's bodies, it's people. So they may need to be creative with using non-traditional Secret Service resources, whether that's private companies, retired agents, other agencies, to make sure that they can secure these areas properly.
OK, plenty more to come discussing this and the ensuing investigation. But for now, Jason Russell, founder and CEO of Secure Environment Consultants and a former Secret Service agent, thanks for joining us on BBC News.
Thank you.
Now, just a reminder that you can find out the latest on this apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump on our live page on the BBC website and also on the BBC News app. Now, former BBC News presenter Hugh Edwards has been given a 6-month suspended prison sentence after admitting charges of making indecent images of children, one of whom was aged between 7 and 9. Mr. Edwards previously pleaded guilty to 3 charges after he was sent 41 illegal images by a convicted sex offender. His lawyer told the court that Mr. Edwards was profoundly sorry and that he recognised the repugnant nature of these images. The BBC said he had betrayed not just the corporation, but also the audiences who had put their trust in him. The United Nations' most senior official overseeing aid and reconstruction in Gaza says the world is collectively failing innocent civilians there after nearly a year of war. Speaking to the BBC from New York, Sigrid Kaag, the senior UN coordinator for humanitarian action and reconstruction in Gaza, described the territory as the most unsafe place in the world to work. Ms. Kaag was appointed 9 months ago to improve the delivery of urgently needed aid. She's been speaking to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, in this rare interview.
My main message is of a very somber and perhaps dark nature, that humanitarian conditions in Gaza as well documented and reported are akin to a significant catastrophe, that we've built all systems to be in place, but there's no substitute for political will and the political choice to improve matters. The ceasefire and release of the hostages is desperately needed. Not much else can be improved until we reach that point.
Is the UN failing the people of Gaza?
It's too easy to say we're failing. What we are doing collectively, I would say, as an international community, is we are failing the innocent civilians in Gaza. And that comes out of the political environment. The UN is working around the clock. We've lost a large number of our own staff. The so-called enabling environment in Gaza is actually counter to anything else we've witnessed in other places.
Women in Iran tell the BBC their online activity has been spied on by the authorities, leading to arrests, threats and beatings. Their testimonies come 2 years after the Women Life Freedom protests, which were ignited after Mahsa Amini died in police custody when she was arrested for wearing the mandatory hijab loosely. BBC Verify reporter Reha Kansara reports, and just a warning, this report does include distressing accounts of violence.
They took me to a room to receive my punishment. He was holding a black leather whip in one hand. That's when he started hitting me all over my body. It was very painful, but I didn't want to show weakness.
This terrifying testimony comes from inside Iran. For her safety, Alif has spoken to us anonymously. She's one of 5 Iranians who've told us they were arrested by the state for their social media activity.
The BBC and other independent media are not allowed to report freely from the country, and they've taken great risks speaking with us.
In one interrogation, they forced me to give them my phone. They accessed all my photos and saw that I took part in the protests. They were recording me. He said, "So you don't regret your actions?" And I said no. Then he threatened me and said, "Since you're so stubborn, I'll try and get you the maximum sentence."
Shortly after the Iranian Revolution in 1979, women were legally required to cover their hair. But the death of Mahsa Amini, whilst in police custody in 2022, unleashed an unprecedented stream of civil disobedience on social media and on the streets. Zan Zindagi Azadi, meaning Women Life Freedom, became the rallying cry for women's rights in Iran. Now the movement's being met with an even harsher clampdown on dissent using state surveillance. Experts say Iran is learning from surveillance states like China and intensifying its methods to catch women who refuse to wear the hijab.
They have developed some mobile phone application and other tools for the police or those volunteers who are already vetted by the government.
The Iranian app Nazar allows people to report women for not wearing the hijab. It's been launched on the police website and is also available on private groups in government-owned messaging apps. But activating it requires authorization.
So they can have this application on their mobile phone. So whenever they see a vehicle is passing and the passenger or the driver is a woman who are not wearing proper hijab, I mean, whatever definition that they have from proper hijab, they can report on it. Basically, they can put the license plate number, they can put the time, location.
It's been widely reported that tens of thousands of people have been arrested since the protests in 2022.
If you look at the charges, propaganda against the state. What propaganda against the state? I'm saying that, you did this to me. I mean, this is propaganda against the state? No, it is the truth, but the truth makes you look bad.
We put these allegations to the Iranian government, but they did not respond. Though mass demonstrations have come to a halt, people are protesting in more subtle ways. And this movement, that's led by women and driven by a right to life and freedom, shows no signs of stopping. Reha Kansara, BBC News.
Well, for more on this, we can speak to Iranian women's rights activist Mahsa Alinejad, who has been in witness protection after experiencing a threat from the Iranian regime. Thanks so much for joining us on BBC News today. How have things changed for women in the 2 years since Mahsa Amini's death?
First of all, it's an honor. You named me Mahsa by mistake, but I really appreciate that. Because when Mahsa Amini brutally was murdered, a lot of us said that we are all Mahsa. So my name is Masih.
Sorry, excuse my pronunciation. I apologize.
As I said beautifully, we call ourselves Mahsa. Mahsa Jina Amini became a symbol of resistance in Iran. So I have to say that many people, especially the West, do not see anything on the headline of the newspapers about what's going on in Iran, and they might think that everything is gone, but the anger is still there. What has changed? I have to say the bravery of Iranian women. Like I remember when Mahsa was killed, it's because of inappropriate hijab, or as you said in your report, they were not covering their hair properly, according to the morality police. But right now, the number of women that walking unveiled in the street increased. We have seen extreme brutality from the regime. More than 700 people got killed during the uprising. More than 22,000 people got arrested. More than 100 people received a death sentence. More than 100 women and men were intentionally blinded. But at the same time, I have to say the revolution itself, called Women, Life, Freedom, happened inside the hearts and minds of people.
In Iran today, the president has said he's promised to make sure that the morality police do not bother women. What's your response to that?
That breaks my heart, because a lot of people, I'm not referring to you, but a lot of people in the West, they're buying these lies and the narrative of a reformist president. But clearly, Islamic Republic, like Taliban, like ISIS, cannot be reformed. These three extremists that I named, they are the axis of Islamist evil. You cannot reform them. So that's why I strongly believe the power of Ali Khamenei, the power of morality police, is more than the power that this so-called reformist president has. So basically, this is something that always they say that in public, in the media, to actually get more attention of the West or the media. But at the same time, I am telling you, nothing gonna happen, because I experienced that. I was part of the reformist media in Iran as well. Many of us lost our hope, and we believe even they get rid of the morality police, and we believe even they get rid of the morality police, but the demand of women, life, freedom uprising is to get rid of the Islamic Republic. This is not what I'm saying here. Nargis Mohammadi in prison, Sepide Qolian is in prison, Golrokh Irai, and many other political prisoners, Mahbouba Rezai, with different political views. They all have one simple demand. We want an end for gender apartheid regime in 21st century.
Okay, Masi Alinejad, thank you so much for joining us on BBC News today. Lovely to speak to you.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
Now, remember, you can find out all about the day's news on our website, bbc.com/news. But that's it today for World News America. I'm Caitríona Perry. Thank you so much for watching, and do stay tuned here on BBC News. Take care.
And so, babe, it's done.
I just sold my car to Carvana.
I just entered my license plate and I
answered a few questions. Bam!
I'm dropping it off and getting paid today.
How convenient is that?
Thanks for choosing Carvana.
Sell your car today and get paid the same day with Carvana.
When the weather can't make up its mind, we can help you make up yours. Check on BBC Weather.
Traveling can be so much more than a holiday.
It's about diving headfirst into new experiences.
And seeing the world with fresh eyes.
Where each destination tells a unique story.
And every encounter brings a new perspective.
Because all of these amazing places
are made so much richer by the people who live in them.
So unleash your spirit of adventure.
And join us for a deeper understanding of the world.
The Travel Show on BBC News.
Memory and thinking issues keep piling up? It may seem like normal aging, but could be due to a buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain. The sooner you talk to your doctor, the more options you may have. Learn more at amyloid.com.
Here's your coffee.
Oh, best intern ever.
Oh, nice. You use Fiverr. Working on anything big?
Oh, yeah. Growth strategy.
Maybe I can help.
Yes. Can I get some oat milk?
Sometimes great talent is right under your nose.
The future is already here.
Lights, camera, action.
All about AI changing our jobs.
Where do you see this technology moving in the future?
A flipping burger robot.
From gadgets to gaming.
The virtual reality landscape has changed quite a bit.
May the best driver win. It won't be me.
Sustainability to AI.
By using giant nets and AI robots to deal with plastic pollution.
This is where the technology is being tested.
Fake.
Yay! I'm enjoying doing it.
Yeah, this is good.
The latest developments from the world of tech.
I could come up with a date predicting when you would die.
Pat your head, rub your stomach.
This is actually a floating solar farm, and it's a pretty impressive sight.
I think it's quite cool.
Wow! That went right through me!
Click on BBC News.
You get scared?
No, I don't get scared. I've covered many wars over many years.
It bothers me to think about North Korean surveillance. Anything left on a shred of paper or my laptop, could it put somebody else's life at risk?
It was always going to be a history-making election.
This is not the time to stumble over my words. My job is to expose how people are targeted because I'm a reporter who can do that.
Behind the stories on BBC News.
I became a tech journalist because I wanted to tell stories about technology. That sounds obvious, but as a disabled person, your life is filled with all sorts of assistive tech. I have the best job in the world. Whenever anyone asks me, do you enjoy your job? It's impossible not to say yes. I've just realised there's a glass floor. One of the things that I really like to do in the stories that I tell is get involved.
This makes me feel even smaller.
My first ever proper TV presenting gig was about prosthetic running blades.
Even with all the training in the world, I don't think I'm ever going to be fit enough to compete with these guys.
Assistive tech in the last 20 years has absolutely transformed from something that was very basic to science fiction. It's completely mind-blowing. This is one of the most incredible things I've ever done. I've watched every Olympics since I can remember, so being able to go to Paris and experience that firsthand has been absolutely amazing. It's been incredible to be at the epicenter of the action. The Paris Olympics truly are pushing the envelope in terms of technology and how it's being deployed right across the board. We've got the blood, we've got the sweat. If I was doing this, we'd definitely have the tears as well. It's really important for journalists to bring their own experience to the stories that they cover. The things I do for television. But just because I'm a disabled person doesn't mean that I should only ever cover stories to do with disability. And that's a very fine line to tread, but hopefully I'm getting it right.
Following the death of American actor James Earl Jones, now on BBC News, another chance to see Stephen Sacker's Hard Talk interview of 2011 with the man whose voice was known the world over as that of Star Wars villain Darth Vader.
Hard Talk has come to the Wyndham's Theatre in London's West End to meet one of America's most respected actors, James Earl Jones. His is an extraordinary story. Born into rural poverty in Mississippi in the era of segregation, he's just been awarded an honorary Oscar for a lifetime of cinematic achievement. These days, black American success on stage and screen is not unusual. But how hard has the journey been? And has America really left the race issue behind? James Earl Jones, welcome to Hard Talk.
Welcome to our theatre.
Well, thank you very much.
The Wyndham's.
The Wyndham's Theatre, where you, for weeks, have been treading the boards in a pretty exacting role in the play Driving Miss Daisy.
A lovely role, and a great pleasure to be in him.
Well, I just wonder whether it is any harder these days to get up for all of the rehearsing, all of the preparation, all of the grueling physical endurance you have to have for a